Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So before we get started on this video, let's just address the elephant in the room, which is... yes, this is not what I asked for. We're just gonna have to ignore the situation for the time being. Unfortunately, I cannot stick my hair back to my head, so yes, let's just hope it grows back quickly and we will leave that at that. Moving swiftly on, this video is going to be all about the UCAT, as you probably know from... No, I need to stop saying that. Okay, the UCAT. I am still ancient, so I will probably call it the UCAT multiple times throughout this video without realising. I mean the UCAT. It's obviously the same thing. Yeah, this video is about the UCAT, formerly known as the UCAT. I did a video about the UCAT, as it was known back then, about 2 years ago, I think, straight after I took it. So if you want to watch that video, then I will link it in the information cards. But today I thought that I would sit down and film a Q&A, because I do get asked questions a lot about the UCAT still, so yeah, I thought I'd just film a video about it. By the way, I am wilting in this room. It is so hot and I can't open my windows because it's rush hour, ladies and gents, and all the kids are coming home from school. Couldn't film it earlier because the grass was being mowed. Literally, today's video is very kindly sponsored by the Medic blog, which was previously known as the UCAT blog, I believe. This is just such a great resource to use for everything UCAT related. They have advice on there from many people who took the UCAT, so you can get lots of different perspectives, so many different tips. There are reviews of UCAT resources on there, so you can pick and choose which one will suit you best. There's just literally so much. There are links to like where you can get free practice questions. It's so amazing because it's all in one place. And also they actually have a UCAT study group on Facebook that you can join, and it's literally just a bunch of students all in your position who are going to take the UCAT, and you can kind of help each other, and it's just such a great idea. So yeah, I will link all that in the description box if you're interested. Without further ado, let's just get on into the video. I'm going to start off with the most common question by far, which is like, when did you start revising? What's the best time to start revising? When should you start revising for the UCAT? The UCAT even. And this is a tough question to answer because it really is dependent on the person, and there are so many factors that play into this. So for example, if you know that 2 weeks of your summer you're busy, so you can only do like an hour of UCAT revision in those days, you're obviously probably going to have to start a bit earlier than when other people might be starting, because you're not going to be doing like full dedicated revision in that period of time. Whereas if you know that you have the whole summer, you can do like hardcore revision most days, then obviously you can give yourself a smaller time scale to revise. By hardcore revision, by the way, I do not mean spend all day revising. Absolutely no. I want to stress this very high, the wind, very highly in this video, because the summer between year 12 and year 13, number one, you're already burnt out from year 12. Number two, you have a worse year coming, and you need your rest. So do not please spend every waking moment revising for the UCAT. It's honestly not worth it. There's absolutely no point, and you're just going to regret it. So by hardcore revision, I mean like a good few hours a day, like 4 hours, 5 hours max. You really don't need to do more than that if you've given yourself like a large enough time frame. Obviously, if you've left it all to do in a week, you're gonna have to like knuckle down and do it. In general, I think I averaged like 4 hours a day. I can't exactly remember now because it was 2 years ago, but I didn't revise every day by any means either. And I did my revision over a month. Initially, I actually scheduled my test earlier than I actually took it, and I had to push it back because I literally felt like I hadn't had enough time. So don't be afraid if you feel like you don't have enough time to cover everything that you want to cover. You can push the test back as long as I think you do it early enough. You can move it back without having to pay for it or anything, and it's well worth doing that and giving yourself more time and being able to do it a bit more like chill and relaxed than panicking and rushing, because you do not need the extra stress. School is stressful enough. I think having spoken to people and read stuff online, a lot of people do say like it's around a month is probably like the average of what people spend. So if you're looking for an average, that's probably it. Honestly, it really depends on you. So yeah, that's a very long-winded answer to a very simple question. I hope that that kind of helps. There's no way that I can say like, oh, if you spend this amount of time, you're definitely going to do well. Okay, next question. How to balance revision with A-levels. Now, I'm probably not the best person to ask this, to be honest, because I made sure that my UCAT was out of the way of any like A-level academic work. So I was determined to just get it done over the summer because I didn't want to have to do it when I got back in September. I know people that did and they did perfectly fine, but for me, I knew that with like having the BMAT and UCAS, I left my personal statement way too late anyway. All of that stuff plus school, like I just probably wasn't feasibly going to be able to revise for it as well like right then as I was over summer, so I just did it over summer. So in that case, or say if you have to like revise for it at the end of year 12, like after exams and stuff, I think just give yourself a target of what you want to cover. Like look at the material that you've got, look at the resources that you've got, split it up evenly to get it all done, or like get what you want to get done before the exam, and weekly like allocate chunks of time to revise for the UCAT in between like your schoolwork. But realistically at the end of year 12 you shouldn't have like as much work to be doing because you've already like done your mocks and it's probably just learning year 13 content. And at the start of year 13 as well, like it kind of eases in a bit, so yeah, it should be okay, but best thing to do is just do it over summer. Next question is, what resources did you use? I used Medify mainly. That was my go-to. I very highly recommend getting a Medify subscription because it's brilliant. The questions are probably the most like what the exam was, and it's just such a great platform to practice questions on and do practice tests on. And I also used the Medic portal a bit and the 1000 UCAT question book, like the physical copy. But yeah, that's basically pretty much all I used like practice question wise. Next question is, what would you say a good UCAT score is? This again, literally so down to the person. This kind of test, yes, you can practice it and you can get miles better at it through practicing, but at the end of the day, some people are just going to be better at it than others. Like, it's such a high pressure test and some people are able to deal with scenarios like that better. And so what a good score is really does depend on you. And I think don't look at other people's scores and just set your own goals based on what you think you can achieve and work towards that. There is no point comparing yourself to other people because at the end of the day, unis have cut-off points usually for like how much higher they want your UCAT to be, or they barely look at it. There are only like a few unis that really like count your UCAT like as a part of their decision-making process. So honestly, you just need to get a score that's good enough for you and where you want to apply, and get a score that's going to make you happy and proud of yourself, and that's going to be different for everyone. So I was extremely happy with my score. I got 737.5 average, and that was over my kind of threshold. I told myself before I took the test, or like whilst I was preparing, that I wanted over 700 average, and I got that, and that's all I wanted, and I'm completely happy with that. Some people may look at that score and say it's really quite bad. Other people may look at that score and say it's amazing. Like, it really depends on how you're doing in your practice, what you want to get out of it. And as I said, unis generally don't need like extortionately amazing scores. Like, you do not need to get 850 average. Obviously it's amazing if you get that, but just don't get disheartened if that's not what you're getting, because you don't need that score to get where you want to go, and this is just an aptitude test, like a stepping stone to get into uni, so don't stress about it too much. What is the best way to revise? So I literally wouldn't even call this revision, because it's not like you can revise anything. It's literally just practice. Like, that's all you can do. I think my main piece of advice is make sure you do timed practice questions and don't like leave them too late. So one of my regrets with how like I did my revision is that I left doing questions timed till a bit too late. I should have given myself more practice at doing them under high pressure, like time scenarios, because obviously initially you want to just get used to the type of question, you want to figure out how to answer them, whatever, but once you've done that, you really need to start learning how to answer these questions very, very quickly, because that is the main problem with the UCAT. It's not the questions themselves, because yes, some of them are a bit difficult, but most of them are actually manageable. And if you want to do medicine, you're probably a smart person anyway. Like, you're not stupid and you can answer these questions. It's just the fact that it's so pressed for time that's like where the problems come from. So basically it's as much a game of like practicing answering questions quickly as it is actually being able to answer the questions. Also make sure to, you know, do past papers, do as many as you can find. The official UCAT website has like, or at least it did when I did the exam, like official mock papers that you can do, so you can kind of check your progress. Those papers were a lot harder than like the real thing was, so like I wouldn't stress, but it's good to kind of do them, see where you're at, get kind of a feel of what the actual exam is going to be like. What is the hardest section? Okay, so personally for me, in my practice, the hardest section was by far quantitative reasoning. I just hated this so much. I couldn't do it. I got such low scores on it, and it was the time mainly. Like, it was too much to do in too little time, and I could never do it. It turns out I got the highest score in quantitative reasoning, which like most of the scores that I got were higher than I had got in the practice usually. So in the actual test, my lowest score was verbal reasoning. It was not good. Obviously, like, the score itself, like, it wasn't completely tragic, but it was so much lower than all the others. I think the main thing with verbal reasoning is you have to learn how to read quickly. Like, that's literally the only thing that you can really do to help yourself with that section. So I think the best thing to do besides doing practice questions is read passages from like random places, I don't know, newspaper articles or stuff like that, and then test to see whether you actually understood what you read. So either like summarize the passage by yourself, see if you actually got the general gist, or get someone else to like test you on certain aspects of it and see if you actually like know what you read, because that's basically the whole point of verbal reasoning. That's the biggest obstacle, is being able to read fast enough to be able to actually answer the questions, because the questions themselves, again, are not impossible. Like, if you had unlimited time, they are really straightforward questions usually, but the fact that you barely have any time to answer them is the problem. Is Medify good or worth it? I'm using the 1250 questions ISC book, but the questions are so hard. Yes, as I said, Medify, in my opinion, is really worth it. That book, yes, the questions in that book are so much harder than the actual exam, I found, especially as you mentioned, the quantitative reasoning section. Those questions were impossible to do in any quick length of time. They were not easy at all, and the actual exam was so much easier than those questions. Next question is, how did you tackle the shape/logic questions when you started preparing? So I take it that this is abstract reasoning. Abstract reasoning was interesting, to say the least. I don't actually think I liked any of these subsections, because looking back, like, I literally didn't like any of them. I just don't like the UCAT. The thing with abstract reasoning is that it's very repetitive and they ask the same types of questions all the time. Obviously, like, you'll see that it's just patterns, spotting patterns, yeah. And so number one, practice. Make sure that you've had enough practice. Right, I'm back from my coughing fit. I have a cold and this is not doing wonders for my throat. The second thing is kind of specific to the abstract reasoning section. What I did was, when I was going through my practice, if I spotted like a new kind of pattern, a new thing to look out for, which you'll get what I mean if you've done the practice questions, there's stuff that you like need to look out for when you're trying to like spot the odd one out or whatever the questions were. I would write it down in a list, and by the end of it I had like a page list of things that I should like think about when I'm trying to figure these questions out. And that's just a great thing to read like the day of the exam, so that they're all fresh in your mind. So when you're in the exam, you can kind of just sit there, try and run through the list, and you've got things or like ideas fresh in your mind to think about, to try and like figure out the questions, because there's only so many patterns that they can think of and so many like types of questions that they can do. I don't have the list on me anymore, I think I binned it, but I think it was along the lines of like, look out for symmetry, or how many dots there are, the arrangement of dots, or like the angle between the lines of the clock, the hands of the clock even. Strategies for abstract reasoning and verbal reasoning. Revision wise, I've already like mentioned for both. Strategy in the exam wise, I think abstract reasoning, it can be so easy to kind of get bogged down on one question. Just don't. Skip it. Move on. If you can't do it, it's fine. Like, there are questions that you're going to be able to answer later on, so it's better to do those questions than to spend ages on one question and then not be able to answer it anyway and have to guess. At the end, obviously, if you have time, just go back through, try and think about those questions that you couldn't do again. If you can't figure it out and you're running out of time, just make as educated a guess as possible, because you have a certain percentage chance of being right anyway through probability, so yeah, you may as well just try and make an educated guess. For verbal reasoning, it's a similar sort of thing. Like, it's the timing. It's always the timing. Give yourself a time limit for each passage, because this is where I went gravely wrong. I spent ages on the first few, and I literally didn't even read the last few passages. Like, I didn't have time to read them. And it's not like I got the first passages like completely correct either, because there were questions that like I just couldn't figure out, and it's so easy to like get flustered and be like, oh my god, I can't think, and you're not going to get all the questions that you do right anyway, probably. So it's better to actually have a good stab at all of them and actually have read all the passages to some extent, because the last few, like, I literally did just click random answers without having read anything. I think the best strategy, which I still hadn't actually chosen one before the exam, with regards to like how to approach it, would probably be like skim read the passage, try and like get a general gist of like what the passage is saying where, like which parts are saying what, and then read the questions and you can like refer back to the passage and you remember where in the passage that was said, so it's like a bit faster. Because I alternated between either not reading the passage and just reading the question and trying to like skim and like look for words, which that can take a long time if you can't find it, or reading the passage completely and then trying to answer the questions from like knowledge, like because you read the passage, like really read it, which again can take time if you're not very quick at reading like me. Like I read very slowly compared to a lot of people. I'm gonna make a modification to my earlier statement, learn how to skim read. That's probably more realistic than learning how to like read super quickly, and also probably more useful anyway. So yeah, I've basically already answered this one. So it was best strategy to answer verbal reasoning questions as the text is too long. Yes, I agree, the text is way too long. How much is enough revision? Honestly, like enough revision is what you feel like is enough revision. There is no like general consensus of like, this is enough revision, you need to have gone through this many practice questions to have revised enough, and it's when you feel like you're ready enough for the exam, and you're never gonna feel completely prepared. Like the first time round when it got to my first test date, I knew that I had done nowhere near enough revision. I was not prepared in any way, like there was so much more that I had to do. But by the time I got around to my second one, no, I didn't feel like super ready. I wasn't there like, yes, I'm so prepared for this exam, I'm gonna do so well. And you're really probably not gonna feel like that. But I knew deep down that I had done so much revision and there was not much more that I could do that was going to help, and that I was pretty much ready to take the exam. So it's really like a gut feeling of like, have you done as much revision as you think is necessary to like do how you want to do in this exam. Tips for the exam day: make sure not to stress yourself out. Because the first section was verbal reasoning, and I remember just sitting there being absolutely terrified, and that really didn't help because I spent that whole section just being really flustered, not being able to like concentrate on what I was reading because I was just so stressed. So just chill. It's one of those situations where the amount of work that you put in kind of dictates what you get out of it. So if you know that you've worked hard for it, more than likely you are going to be fine. There is no point of stressing yourself out because it's going to make you do worse. So just go in calmly, collect yourself and smash it. Use the whiteboard, it's great, especially for quantitative reasoning. It was really helpful. Yeah, oh also with the like on-screen calculator, make sure you've done like a mock or something using an on-screen calculator, because obviously it's not the same as being able to like pick up a calculator and quickly like press in numbers. So make sure that you're familiar with that. But other than that, there's not really much else to say for like on the exam day itself. Tips for situational judgment. This is one where really like it literally is number one, common sense to some degree. Number two, you just need to do enough practice because it's very repetitive and you'll see like patterns of kind of rules of what you need to put when. I wrote these out in a list, like there were pages and pages and pages, like if someone has done this, then this is the answer. And there were loads of these and I would just write them out just to like help myself remember them. Basically it's a case of learning like what is very bad and like what is a bit less bad, because often like you're obviously not stupid enough to not know like what is bad and what you shouldn't do compared to like what you should do, but it's just the difference between like this is extremely bad and like this is just a bit bad and like this is okay-ish. Like that's kind of the main issue, is just which one is which. And I think making sure that you've kind of gone through enough questions to know which scenarios tend to be which answer is the way to go for preparing for this. Like, I basically just did a bunch of questions. I know I've already covered this, but someone said, when did you start revising? I know some started months ago and I'm stressed that I haven't. Honestly, no. Like, you please don't stress about it, because you don't need to revise for that long. Like, 2 months ago from when I posted this, which was 5 weeks ago, is a ridiculous time to start revising unless you are literally just doing like 15 minutes a day and you're planning on doing that right up until your test date. You do not need to do that. Like, a month is well enough time, and you're not even revising every day, and you're not revising the whole day every day. Just do what's right for you, and I know that this is way easier said than done, but try not to compare yourself to other people, because it just lends towards stress, and it's unnecessary. Not a question, but I'm so glad I never have to do it again. Same. Literally same. I did not like this test, if you haven't gathered already. Like, I feel like it's just so down to chance, like whether you get nice questions on the day or like how you're feeling that day. Like, it's literally 2 hours that dictates a bit. Like, it kind of does, to be honest. Whether you get into your dream uni or something, like, I don't like it. Exam nerves and technique for preparation. I think I, covered preparing for it. Exam nerves, again, please try and not stress and trust yourself that you've done enough, because a big thing recently for me, like self-discovery wise, has been you need to believe in yourself and believe that you are not stupid and that you've done enough and you're going to do fine. Because I tend to bring myself down a lot, and I really am very hard on myself, and I never think that I'm going to do well in anything. And to some extent that is a safety blanket for me, because safety blanket, is that the term? I don't know. Because at least like when I do achieve something, like, yay, it's great, fun, whatever, but if I don't get the grades that I want, or I don't do very well and whatever, it's kind of like there's not a disappointment there, because it's not like I was expecting anything else. But sometimes it's just so much more worth believing in yourself and believing that you can do it, because especially in these kind of situations where it's already stressful enough, you don't need your own added stress. Like, it's going to make you perform worse. There is no need to stress yourself out, basically. Next question is, do you think it's worth going for a preparation course? Personally, I didn't. I can't really say anything about courses themselves, because obviously I haven't been to one. If you want to go to one, I'm sure that for the amount of money that you'd be paying, they'd prepare you very well. Or like you'd hope so. There was no way I could afford to go to one. They were way too expensive. You are not going to do badly just because you didn't go to one. I, for one, did not go to one, and I think I did fine for my standards. Some of my friends did so well, and they didn't go to a course either, so you don't need to go to a course. Like, is it worth going to a course? I can't really answer that because I haven't been to one. But do you need to go? No. Like, you can get a good score without having gone. It's just a case of like, do you want someone else to teach you? Are you willing to pay that amount of money? That was actually the last question. So yeah, that's this video over. I hope you found it helpful. If you have any other questions, do leave them in the comments. I will answer them all. And yeah, if you found this video useful, do give it a thumbs up, and you can subscribe to my channel for more medicine related content. My social media handles are always in the description as well. And that's pretty much it for this video. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!